felt it before. That weight behind your eyes. That specific heaviness that settles somewhere between your chest and your throat and doesn't move. You know exactly what to do with it. You put on something to watch. You reach for your phone. You call someone. You eat something. You go somewhere loud enough that the feeling has to compete for space. Modern humans have an entire industry built around not feeling sad. But for 300,000 years, none of that existed. No screens, no therapy, no medication, no playlists curated for exactly this emotional frequency. When your ancestors felt that weight settle in, there was nowhere to put it and nowhere to go. So what did they actually do? The answer is stranger than you'd expect, and it changes something fundamental about what sadness actually is. Let's start with what scientists know about grief in the ancient world. Because for most of human history, the most common trigger for deep sadness wasn't a breakup or a bad day at work. It was death. And death was everywhere. Anthropologist Rachel Kasperi at Central Michigan University spent years studying the age-at-death patterns of ancient human remains. Her findings, published in 2004, revealed something striking. For most of human prehistory, living past the age of 30 was genuinely rare. The people around you died constantly. Children died. Parents died. Partners died. The person you hunted with last week was simply gone. Grief wasn't a crisis in the ancient world. It was the weather. But here's what's fascinating. We know ancient humans didn't just move on, because they didn't bury the dead and walk away. The archaeological record tells us something completely different. The oldest intentional burial sites discovered, School Cave in Israel, dating back roughly 130,000 years, show something that stops archaeologists cold. The bodies weren't just placed in the ground. They were arranged, carefully, with objects, shells, ochre, animal bones positioned with apparent deliberateness. These weren't practical acts. You don't need to give a dead person a shell. You do it because something inside you cannot simply leave them the way they are. Something inside you insists that this person mattered, that their going deserved marking. That insistence is the oldest evidence we have of human sadness. Not tears, those decompose, but the physical, deliberate refusal to let the dead simply be dead. And then there was the body itself. Here's something most people never think about. Sadness has a biology, and that biology is ancient. When you feel grief, your body produces elevated cortisol. Your heart rate changes. Your immune system temporarily suppresses. The physical weight you feel isn't metaphorical. Your muscles actually produce less energy. Your body is doing something specific, something it was designed to do. Evolutionary psychologist Paul Gilbert at the University of Derby has spent decades studying what he calls the submissive response, a set of physical and behavioral changes that appear across virtually every social mammal on the planet when they experience loss or defeat. Drooping posture, lowered eyes, reduced energy, social withdrawal. Sound familiar? Gilbert argues this response evolved for a precise reason, not to make you suffer, to stop you from doing something that would make things worse. In a dangerous ancestral environment, acting while emotionally destabilized was lethal. Grief slows you down. It quiets the body. It creates a forced pause, a period where the organism stops seeking, stops competing, stops expending energy it doesn't have. Your sadness isn't malfunctioning. It's conserving. But that's only half the story, because ancient humans didn't experience sadness alone, and that changes everything about what it actually was. In 2017, anthropologist Kim Sterelny at Australian National University published a paper examining the social structures of early human groups. His conclusion pointed to something that modern psychology is only beginning to take seriously. For most of human history, emotional experience was not private. You were never more than a few feet from another person. You slept together. You ate together. You moved together. There was no concept of going home and closing the door and being alone with your feelings. There was no door. When someone in a hunter-gatherer group was sad, the entire group knew, not because that person announced it, because human beings are extraordinarily sensitive reading machines. We detect micro-expressions in under 200 milliseconds. We hear vocal changes invisible to conscious awareness. We feel the emotional temperature of the people around us the way we feel actual temperature. Sadness in the ancestral environment was a social signal, not a private state. And the group responded. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer populations, the Hadza of Tanzania, The Kung of the Kalahari, the Agta of the Philippines consistently show the same pattern. When a member of the group experiences loss, the response is immediate and physical. Proximity, touch, shared silence, shared activity. People simply move closer. There are no cards, no "I'm so sorry for your loss," no scheduled check-ins, just bodies, close together, doing ordinary things in proximity. And here's what makes this extraordinary. Researchers studying grief outcomes across cultures have found that this simple physical presence, not words, not advice, not problem solving, is the single most powerful predictor of grief recovery. Not what people say, where they are. But there's one more layer, and it might be the strangest part of all. Ancient humans grieved out loud, not in the modern sense, not crying privately in a bathroom, not the suppressed weeping of someone trying not to make things awkward. Out loud, together, vocally. Anthropologist Harvey Whitehouse at the University of Oxford has studied ritual mourning practices across hundreds of cultures. His findings converge on something remarkable. In societies without writing, without institutions, without recorded history, the response to grief is almost universally communal and vocal. Wailing, keening, collective mourning sounds made together. This isn't primitive. It's neurologically sophisticated. When you cry alone, your cortisol levels drop somewhat. When you cry with other people, when the sound of your grief is matched and mirrored by the sounds around you, your body receives a fundamentally different signal. The nervous system interprets the matched vocalization as confirmation that the loss is acknowledged, witnessed, real. It is, in the most literal sense, the difference between being heard and not being heard. Modern humans almost never do this. Our grief is quiet, scheduled, appropriate. We go back to work, we manage, we hold it together. We have optimized the appearance of being fine, and in doing so, we have removed almost every mechanism our species actually evolved to process loss. No physical proximity, no matched vocalization, no communal ritual, no shared ordinary activity performed together in silence, just a screen and a playlist, and the persistent impression that we should probably be over it by now. In 2020, psychologist Lucy Hone at the University of Canterbury published research on what she calls resilient grief, the patterns of processing that actually work versus the ones modern culture promotes. Her conclusion was uncomfortable. The thing that predicts grief recovery most reliably isn't time. It isn't closure. It isn't even support in the abstract. It's the continued experience of positive emotion alongside the grief. Not instead of it, alongside it. Ancient humans lived this instinctively. The person who was sad still ate around the fire with the group, still heard the children playing, still felt the warmth of the sun and the weight of someone sleeping nearby. Sadness existed inside a life that continued, not after it. Modern grief happens in a room alone, with the blinds down. And then we wonder why it doesn't move. For 300,000 years, your ancestors treated sadness as a signal to move closer to each other, to slow down, to make noise together, to place objects in graves and stay near the body and refuse to pretend the loss was small. They didn't try to fix grief. They attended it. The weight behind your eyes isn't a malfunction. It's not something to fill or drown or distract away. It's a 300,000-year-old request for someone to sit with you and not say anything, for the people around you to simply move closer and stay.